Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center here in New York City. Tonight here on the Pace Report, you're in for a special treat. Tonight you're going to witness the New York record release of Christian McBride's new Jawn, performing music off his brand new Mack Avenue Records release, Prime, featuring the great Josh Evans on trumpet, Marcus Strickland on bass, clarinet, and saxophone, and Nasheet Waits on drums. Christian has stepped into some new shoes over the last decade, including one, he's the artistic director of the iconic Newport Jazz Festival, which was started by the legendary Wein, as well as he and his wife Mellissa Walker started Jazz House Kids, and they also started the Montclair Jazz Festival, which takes place every year. Now tonight here on the Pace Report, I had a chance to sit down with Christian, one, to talk about the new Jawn project, as well as his role as artistic director. And we also talk about and reflect on some musicians who we collaborated, who we lost over the last couple of years during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm talking about the legendary Chick Corea and the great McCoy Tyner. And we also sit down and talk about his role as not only just a band leader, but now bringing Black American music forward to the next generation of music fans. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of the New York record release performance of Christian McBride's new Jawn, performing music from the new album Jawn, which is now available on Mack Avenue Records. Live here at Jazz and Lincoln Center's Dizzy's, here on the Pace Report, here in New York City. Man, this is the record release of the new Jawn product. You know, I have to ask you this now. This is your second Jawn recording. Is Christian McBride's Jawn this generation's version of Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers?
I don't know. I think there has come a point where all my contemporaries doing other things, and so whether you really want to be a mentor to the younger generation or not is something that naturally has to happen, you know. So I would say probably when I started Inside Straight and I invited Warren Wolf to come join that band, that was the first time where I'd hired someone who was significantly younger than me. And then the trio I had with Christian Sands and Ulysses Owens Jr., they were younger than Warren, you know. In fact, Christian Sands was born the year I moved to New York City. And the cycle keeps happening, you know. So, I mean, I never thought of myself as Art Blakey, but I think there are more younger musicians to hire than musicians my age.
Explain this project. This album it's kind of dark, but it's kind of funky at the same time.
Well, when I first started this band in December of 2015, it was at the Village Vanguard, because as you know, I have a 2-week residency every year there, and it affords me an opportunity. Hello, New York, all those sirens out there. It affords me an opportunity to play with either different working bands of mine, or I get to experiment with whatever kind of band I want to put together. So this one particular year, you know, I had a really great run with that trio, with Christian and Ulysses. And I said, it's time to do something a little different, you know. I like keeping myself sharp and my fans on their toes. So I didn't want to have another trio playing the same kind of stuff. So I said, let me do a quartet that's a little, you know, for what people usually expect out of me, it would be considered out, you know, or progressive, shall we say. So Marcus Strickland, that's my man. I've known him for a long time. Nasheet Waits I've known for a long time, but we never really got a chance to play together before this band. And Josh in this band is what Warren was in Inside Straight and what Christian and Ulysses were in the trio. And so we played that gig at the Vanguard December 2015, and we've been together ever since. We did our first record in 2018. Well, we recorded it in 2017, came out in 2018. And a few people were like, yeah, you know, you're doing the, you know, sort of like the Ornette, you know, kind of sort of avant-garde, kind of, yeah, okay, that's cool, it's a cool experiment. With this new one, I think everybody's going, oh wait, you serious about this?
Right.
But I mean, I don't know what I think of my bands are. I just think of them as different inflections of the same language.
Composition-wise, did you allow some of the band members to bring some of
Always. Every band I've ever had, well, first of all, I'm not that prolific. I do write a lot, but I don't think I've ever written a lot of music that the entire band could play all my stuff. So I want musicians to be represented also as composers, because that's another element of their musicianship rather than them just playing. So yeah, everybody's got contributions compositionally in this group.
Let me ask you, Brother Mister, another component of the Gemini behind Christian McBride. You decided to, the label.
Right.
Explain how this came into fruition.
It was pretty organic. I've been signed with Mack Avenue since 2008, and they have given me a home to, pretty much do what I want to do. And so I produced a couple of records for Mack Avenue. In fact, I brought Warren and Christian Sands to Mack Avenue, and I produced both of their debut albums. I produced an album for Sean Jones. Improvise was the name of the album. And I produced a couple other projects, and so I started to get these production credits going on. And when I started doing some more stuff, in-house at Mack Avenue, my manager at the time, Andre Guest, we just kind of looked at each other like, I think we got something here. And so Brother Mister was officially born as a label / production wing.
The role of a producer. Explain your role as a producer, and because now the record labels have gotten away from A&R, so now the producer now is A&R /
everything. Yeah.
How is that now?
Well, when I first started getting into jazz and listening to jazz records, I didn't understand what a producer did. I would look at the credits on these records and I would think like, why does Miles Davis need Tio Macero? Miles Davis knows what he's doing, Why does Coltrane need Bob Thiele? He knows what he's doing, So I never understood what producers did in the studio with these great musicians. But I think the more I started making my own records, and I started thinking, oh, I see what producers do now. It's always good to have a fresh set of ears, a set of ears that are away from the project, because when you're too close to it, you miss stuff. So like when it's your band, when it's your music, when it's your project, and you're really that close to it, it really helps to have someone to create an atmosphere for the entire band, for the entire mood of recording, and someone who has the ears to say, hey, you might want to listen to that again a little closer. Like, huh? What do you mean? I know, no, just take a listen. And you're like, oh, I missed that. So I realized the role of producers, even in jazz, but me, I like to set a particular mood for the musicians to record. Two of my greatest mentors when it came to producing, they're both gone now. The late great Tommy LaPuma,
wow,
and George Duke.
Wow. And
each of them always set an atmosphere of so much joy and positivity. And sometimes you don't really understand how important that is.
Right.
To have an atmosphere in the studio where everybody feels loose, calm. If you mess something up, it's no big deal. Just do it again. In fact, with George Duke, we would be in the studio laughing and yucking it up so much, it almost felt like you weren't working. And then at the end of the day, you got 6 tracks done. And you're like, when did we get all that done? So that was the magic of George Duke. You would be working hard, but it never felt like work.
Right.
And with Tommy, he was the first and only producer that I ever worked with who actually sat in the room with the musicians. First time I worked with him, that was awkward, because all producers sit in the booth next to the engineer.
Yeah, right.
And all the musicians go in to start playing, and he comes out with us. It's like, where's he going? And Steve Gadd was on the session. The first time I worked with Tommy was on a David Sanborn record called Pearls, and that was my first. That was my first bona fide, like, New York session, like legend session. Johnny Mandel was conducting the orchestra. Steve Gadd played drums. Don Grolick played piano and keyboards. Bucky Pizzarelli played guitar, and every New York studio legend was. Phil Ramone was just hanging out in the studio. Both Joe Furla and Al Schmidt engineered it.
Wow.
And Tommy was the producer, and David, of course. And so I asked Steve Gadd, I said, Steve, does Tommy always sit out in the back with the band? He said, yeah, that's his thing. Because Tommy thought that when he's sitting out there with the musicians, he can feel the energy in a much truer sense than behind the glass sitting in front of the speaker. He's like, I can feel it coming straight from you guys. And, he always picked the best takes. Always picked the best takes.
So how many takes, say for instance with Samba, because I've always heard from musicians that after the second and third take, it's not.
That's true. Well, Sanborn would, Tommy was great at, I think all great producers know when the air is starting to go out, when it's starting to fizzle. And so sometimes to make the cats feel better, Tommy would already know that last take y'all just did, that was the one. You don't really need to do it again. But no, I didn't really feel, okay, we'll do another one. So he would let you do another one even though he knew he wasn't going to use it.
Right.
But that would make the cats feel good, And then when the record came out, everybody would collectively go, yeah, you were right. We didn't need that last take. But sometimes you got to do it just to make yourself feel better.
It's crazy. I met Mr. LaPuma at the Jazz Standard right before he died.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, name me the two people that you produced that, was one of your best. He said Diana Krall,
mm-hmm.
and then he said George Benson. And
Right.
I thought about the Breezin' album.
Yeah.
And I had to think about what Tommy LaPuma did. Tommy LaPuma kind of changed the way the music changed because FM radio was coming into fruition.
Right. That's right.
And Tommy produced him without a Tommy LaPuma there would be no Al Jarreau.
That's right.
Michael Franks and George Benson.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the artists that you're talking about and the producers you're talking about, producers have really kind of groomed them to become what they became.
George Benson always said that the reason why he had an instant bond with Tommy is because, for my money, no one asked for my opinion, but I'm going to give it anyway. George Benson is still the greatest living jazz guitar player on the planet.
That's right.
And, if anybody out there thinks they can cut him, by all means, try.
When Wes died, he was handed, he was pretty much
mantle.
Handed,
That's right.
handed the mantle.
That's right. And he's still playing, playing his butt off. But I believe it was the Keystone Corner in San Francisco. Tommy heard George playing there, and at that time George said, he would play most of the set, and then maybe sing one or two songs. And he said when Tommy came up to him after the set one night, he was like, "Man, you need to sing more often." George was like, "I knew I found my man." He was like, because all them jazz people, they man just play, you don't need to hear you sing. And he said when Tommy said, "Man, you need to sing more often," and the rest is history.
And we can go into George Duke. I had an honor to interview him on the Pace Report. And George told me the story about Let's Hear It for the Boy, Denise Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to record the song.
Right.
He went to the grave detesting that song, but became one of his biggest produced records.
When I think of 1983, I think of that song.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you another thing too that I loved about Mr. Duke. Those first 3 Jeffrey Osborne albums.
Ooh, come on, man.
Flawless. In fact, the second record was a continuation of the debut record.
Yes.
And those 2 albums kind of solidified Jeffrey Osborne into a bona fide solo star. But also George could do the jazz stuff too.
And I think what brought us together was I really believe in my heart that George was surprised that a young New York straight ahead jazz guy knew about all his jazz stuff. Because, you know, he always said, man, you know, every time I meet some young cats, they want to talk to me about the fusion thing, you know, the Clark Duke Project, Colin Duke Project, all the Frank Zappa recordings. My first question to George was like, tell me some Cannibal Idol stories. You know? And, you know, all of the stuff that he did with Gerald Wilson early in his career, Jean-Luc Ponty. And so he was actually, he seemed impressed and surprised that I knew all that stuff in the cracks that had gotten lost, you know?
Right. Let's talk about your role now. You are wearing many shoes. Brother Mr. Records. You're now Jazz Night in America in PR. And now something that I admire you for is you're walking in the role as an artistic director for some very important and upcoming jazz festivals. Tell me how George Wein handed you the baton to run one of the first jazz festivals.
The first in America.
In America.
Yeah.
How did that come to your plate?
Well, you know, man, total surprise. And when younger musicians ask me about this, there's a lesson in this story. I knew George a little throughout my career, you know, from the time I started gigging around New York until the time he asked me to replace him. Played Newport a handful of times, hung out with George a handful of times, but he was never someone I had a real close personal relationship with. So 2015, he asked me to play the festival with my trio, and we played what is now known as the quad stage. And a couple weeks later, George called me up. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. In 2014, there was a panel discussion at the Smithsonian on the 60th anniversary of the Newport Jazz Festival. And George asked me to join him on that panel. And, you know, like I said, I didn't have really that deep of a connection with him before. And so I thought, like, there's a lot of other musicians who have played Newport a lot more than I have, who probably could have been a better call for that panel. So I figured there'd be, you know, some other people on the panel. I said, well, sure, I'd be honored to do it. You know, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to say, but who else is on it? He said, it's just me, you, and Dan Morgenstern. And Soledad O'Brien is the moderator. I'm going, really? That, you know, like
Roy Haynes,
Ron Carter, you know, whoever. He said, no, just the four of us. So I went to DC scratching my head the whole way, man. And after it was over, it's like, okay, that was nice, but why was I there? You know, and John Batiste called in from like Skype or something like that. So I let that go. Played Newport the next year, 2015. About a couple weeks after that was over, George called and said, hey man, come over to my apartment. I want to talk to you. Like, okay. And
you've been commissioned.
You've been signed. Yeah, right. And so I told my wife Mellissa, I said, hey, George Wein wants me to come over. And she said, wow, what do you think he wants? I said, you know, he's always inviting cats up there for lunch, and you know, I don't know. He asked me to do that thing in D.C. last year, and you know, I don't know. Maybe he wants to, you know, have me as artist in residence next year. And Mellissa went, I don't know. I think he wants more than that. Because if he wanted you to be artist in residence next year, he could have asked you that over the phone.
Right.
You know. I said, well, we'll see what happens. So I go to his apartment, and this is when I started getting nervous. So I get there, and he tells his assistant to shut the door.
Oh, man.
Bertie, shut the door. You know, like, yes, Mr. Wein, you know. And he says, you know, I've been keeping an eye on all these things you've been doing, you know, the NPR gig, you know, what you've been doing with your wife and Jazz House Kids, what you've been doing with John Schreiber and NJ Pack, when you were creative chair for jazz programming out in LA with the LA Phil. You know, you're working with this person, that person, you really run the whole, you know, you got the whole gamut. And then he starts giving me this history of Newport and how he had turned it into a nonprofit 8 or 10 years before. And so he's just going through this whole thing and saying, you know, we got a really great board, and, you know, we got people that are looking out for the foundation. And I'm now 89 years old. And at our last board meeting, we realized that we don't have a successor plan. And so now I'm going, he wants recommendations. This is still so far over my head, man. You know, so I'm thinking, okay, who could I recommend? Man, I'm thinking, Wynn's got his hands full. He can't take on anything else, And while I'm thinking, George says, so me and the board decided that you should be the new artistic director of the Newport Jazz Festival. Brother Pace, I literally was numb from shock for about a good 3 minutes.
I bet you were.
And
the ride home was intense too.
Oh man, I didn't make it to the car. As soon as I got outside, I called Mellissa. I was like, ah! And George said, my vision for the Newport Jazz Festival was to always have every different style of jazz that's out there, because this music over the years has expanded. You got your straight ahead, you got your avant-garde, you got your fusion, you got your funk jazz. I want all of that. I want the traditional,
Well, he did that with the New Orleans Jazz Festival too.
That's right.
He did that in a city where the hybrid of, tourists, but also the New Orleans tradition of Black American music.
That's absolutely right. And so George said, I just don't know if I feel that someone gets it, like the whole circle of Black American music, like you do. I said, well, I'm deeply humbled, George, So he said, now don't answer me now, take a few days to think about it, and then let me know. So I called up everybody, and they're like, man, damn right you're going to take that job.
Right.
Right. So they made the announcement in March of 2016, and my the first festival that I curated was 2017. And I've been doing it ever since.
you and Mellissa have been very, very passionate about Jazz House Kids.
Yeah.
And you living in Montclair, I have over the last couple of years been covering the Montclair Jazz Festival, and it's becoming bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Tell me about the vision of this festival, and also tell my viewers how they can get involved with Jazz House Kids, because I know that now we're in an era now where hip hop and trap and drill is like
Right.
music, but this is a program that's actually putting instruments in kids' hands and learning the history of the music.
Yes, indeed. Well, you know, the story of Jazz House Kids is, I don't even know if I have time to tell that whole story, but I will say that inside of the story of Jazz House Kids, we started a summer program, a 2-week summer program. And we had, in the beginning, this was in 2010, yeah, 2010. And we had a bunch of students, mostly from all around New Jersey, as part of our 2-week summer intensive. And of course, at the end of the 2 weeks, we had a student concert, and we would have it in Newport Park. And only the parents of the students would come out. So, you know, it was probably a total of 100 or 150 people there, and they were all parents. And the next year, there were probably 200 people there in the audience, mostly parents and a few fans who had remembered what was going on the year before. So year by year, it kept getting bigger. So in one year, we invited Monty Alexander to come and play, do a set with me and Ulysses to kind of like put a cap on the end of the summer concert. And I mean, we didn't even have a piano. Monty played a little keyboard, and he rocked the house, even on a keyboard, you know. And I remember we went to pay Monty, and Monty said, "Hey, keep this money. I'm donating it back to the program, and hopefully next time I play here, you guys will have a real piano." So Monty Alexander.
He played last year.
Yes, that was how we brought him back.
Yeah, he was the headliner last year. Yeah,
exactly, and that was because we felt indebted to him to bring him back. But at some point, the crowd got so big, we looked at each other and said, I think we got something here. You know, let's see what happens if we turn this into a full-fledged festival. And so one year we invited, I can't remember what year it was, maybe 2013. My years are bad. Joe Lovano came, Anat Cohen came, Michelle.
Not played last. No. Did Emmett play last year?
Yes.
And Anat played the year before last. Yeah, right.
And so they came early in the game. Billy Drummond played, and it became a full-fledged festival. And by 2015, we had Nishwayne Park filled with 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And 16, it got bigger by like 1,500 people. 17, 18, 18 and 19, I think it was, we got rained out. And that was a big drag. Then of course 20 was the pandemic. But then we moved the festival to Bloomfield Avenue. And the good part is now we have like two pretty big stages. And I don't know what the vision of the festival was, because we never expected, A, to have one, and 2, once we did have one, we didn't think it would turn out to be this big.
I like the fact that the Jerseyites don't have to leave Jersey. They can, they can drive.
Right.
They have to come to the city.
And I didn't realize that was a thing. You know, because before I got married, I thought I was going to live and die in the city. You know, I'm a city boy. Grew up in Philly and then moved to New York City. And the city, you know, Jersey, you know. And now I'm in Jersey, and it's like, okay, there's a scene here. You know, we don't have to go to the city. You know,
right.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
But you brought the culture to suburbia.
Yeah,
and it's okay. It's okay.
And Montclair, of course, is a town like, if you are a city boy, like I am, Montclair would be the place to live. You know, where, you know, our neighbors are Billy Hart, Steve Touré, you know, Andrew Cyril, you know, Jerome Jennings, and of course next door is Glen Ridge, where Kenny Garrett lives, and West Orange, you know, Reedy Rosmus and Bill Charlap. So all kinds of cats.
Newark is, you know,
and Newark is, you know, 15 minutes down Bloomfield Avenue.
Yeah,
you know, so great place to be.
Ron Carter has a term that he's coined, musicians that have left the stage.
Yeah.
And I was going through my CDs, and I pulled out a McCoy Tyner record. And I was living in Detroit at the time, and the great Ed Love used to play this album all the time. It's McCoy, Joe Lovano, and Jeff Tane Watts live at Yoshi.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this
We made
record.
that on New Year's.
Woo!
Yeah.
And you've played with McCoy a couple of times, and he's from your hometown of Philly.
Yeah. Same neighborhood too.
Really?
Yep.
Give me your reflections of McCoy now and what he means to you.
I listen to McCoy Tyner almost every day.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like his music, the way he played the piano, and the sort of the feel, that spiritualism, that force that comes out of his piano playing, that has touched me as deeply as James Brown. You know, because I wrote this big essay about McCoy Tyner when he passed away. I've always felt that a lot of jazz critics, a lot of jazz intellectuals, they oversimplify McCoy's playing as being influenced by Coltrane.
Facts.
You know, like had McCoy not gotten with Coltrane, you know, he would have sounded nothing like that. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that.
No.
You know, Coltrane certainly was the primary reason for his ascension in terms of his playing, but if you listen to him playing with Art Farmer and Benny Golson, it was already there.
Right.
You know, and there's a famous, infamous interview where Coltrane himself says, McCoy Tyner is playing some things on the piano, but I don't really know what they are. So like,
right.
Even Coltrane was like, don't ask me what he's doing, you know. But McCoy was, man, the more I started to learn about this music, and I realized not only was he from Philly, but he was from West Philly. I grew up on 55th Street, he grew up on 46th Street.
Wow.
And, you know, I mean, obviously like 30 years apart, but like the neighborhood still really hasn't changed at all, you know. And I was so grateful to get to play with him numerous times and record with him numerous times. And I remember playing with him in Philly with Mickey Roker. That was deep.
Wow.
That was deep.
Wow.
But as much information that came out when he played, he didn't talk about music that much.
He didn't need to.
Right? You know, his thing was about family, spirituality, people. You know, I mean, he might tell you what the chords were to a certain song, but like, you know, this whole thing, like, what is that? Yeah, I'm not really sure he knew either. That's like, it's not something he really sat down and like over analyzed, you know. I think some of that stuff is just, but like how he was able to work out this whole thing and like, it's just some heavy stuff, man.
I ran into one of your classmates at Emmett's place.
Which one?
Mr. Kurt Rosenweed.
Oh, my man.
And I had gotten caught up with him. Like, I have to be out because I have to catch up with musicians. And I pulled him aside and we talked about Joey D.
Yeah.
And I know all of you guys, you, Amir, Kurt,
Yeah.
you guys were all classmates.
Boys to Men.
Woo! Roots.
Yeah.
How, Joey means a lot to me because let me give you a little example. All of the guys that I was listening to coming up, Tupac, Biggie, Whitney, Prince, Michael, Roy Hargrove, Joey, they're gone.
Right. That's deep.
50, 55. I'm 50.
That's deep.
Tell me about Joey now. I know when he came out on the scene, he kind of resuscitated the B3 and in the direction of it.
No doubt, 100%. He was the only reason, I won't go as far as to say only, that the B3 became popular again. And the fact that he was so great at it, I asked Joey, which the thing I'm most happy about is that Joey and I kept in pretty close touch over the last 10 years, you know, so there was never a moment where we didn't know how we felt about the other. And I once asked him, I said, man, how does it feel? Because there's a lot of killing organ players out there, you know, but then there's you. So like, to me, you're like the sun, and like all these other B3 players are Earth. So like, how does it feel to be your own planet? And I really honestly felt that way about him, you know, because the other thing about Joey, growing up with him, I watched him repair organs. This dude was like 12 years old. He knew how he could take the back panel off and like work all of the wires and do all the soldering and stuff like that. Like the motor, I mean, he could fix all of that stuff. I said, man, how'd you? So his father,
right,
Papa Jawn, obviously a great organ player himself, but he was an electrician. So he showed Joey all that stuff, you know.
And another sidebar about Joey's genius is that the architects taught him.
That's right.
Smith, Jimmy McGriff,
Trudy Pitts, Shirley Scott.
Yeah. Right. They imparted the knowledge on him as well.
That's right.
I used to tell Joey this story all the time. I said, man, my prom night, man, there were 3 cassettes I played all night. I said it was Sex Package, Digital Underground, Where Were You, Your Record, and X-Clan. They were all in. My date got tired of hearing. She got tired of hearing this. You got any more jazz? I said, no, this is. But
that's hilarious.
Those are the 3 tapes I played on prom night.
I mean, like, I don't even remember what they played on prom. Like, I remember there was a lot of Bobby Brown.
Oh God. You heard about Bobby, right?
What?
They had to take him off the tour, man. He really looked like he.
Yeah, poor brother.
I mean, I hope he don't. Yeah. We don't add him to the list I just named because
Bobby, we need your help.
Yeah, man. I know, man. I know.
Tired of losing these.
Yeah, man.
Black legends, man.
One more guy I want to talk about, and this guy left an incredible amount of music. Yeah. He's going to be like Wayne Shorter as far as when we do legendary music concerts and tributes around the world, and I'm talking about Chick Corea. What was that like playing with him?
Well, I never took him for granted. I never took the fact that having worked so closely with him for the course of 26 years, and that, you know, he became friends, he and his wife Gail became friends with my mother and Mellissa, and, you know, we were like friends, close friends. But I never took that for granted, because I would always look at him and still be like, you're Chick Corea. Is it really you? You know? So I never wanted him to think that, you know, just because I could call him Chick and call him up anytime, that I took that gig lightly. Playing with him was some of the greatest moments I've ever had as a human being. You know, playing with him in a variety of different settings. I mean, too many groups to start naming now, but the trio with Brian, and then we played together a lot with Roy Haynes.
Right.
And now playing with either one of them is great, but to play with them together,
well, Roy was on his debut record, So He Sings His Eyes.
That's right.
They have a very long history together. He was kind of like a father to Chick.
And anytime Roy was in the band, it said Chick Corea, but it was Roy Hayes' band. Right. Chick always gave Roy the last word.
Right.
You know. So I mean, yeah, I miss Chick a whole lot. Somebody like Wein, like all of us that knew, you know, we kind of knew it was coming. We could kind of brace for his transition. But Chick's was sudden. Nobody saw that coming.
Right.
You know, I spoke to Chick on his birthday, which was in June, and
Gemini, another Gemini.
That's right. And we had one last text exchange in like around August or September, and then he went dark.
Yeah.
And what I know now is nobody heard from him for the last 5 months of his life.
Right.
You know. So the time he was diagnosed till his death, very quick.
Wow.
Very quick.
Wow. I'm gonna go down a list of very important suites and competitions. Mississippi, goddamn, Nina Simone.
Yep.
Alabama, John Coltrane. Freedom Suite, Sonny Rollins. I think you know where I'm going with this. Fables of Faubus, Charles Mingus. Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday. We Insist, Freedom Now Suite, Max Roach. The Movement Revisited, a musical portrait of four icons, Christian McBride. Woke has always been in black folks' vernacular.
Man, look, told somebody that not that long ago. And jazz musicians were on it because I feel like in sort of black popular culture, oftentimes the focus gets put on R&B and soul music made in the 60s. But jazz has been on that half a decade, half a century before soul music got popular.
Right,
you know?
Right. And even if you look at James Reese Europe?
Yes, absolutely.
When he took black music to World War I in
right.
Europe, that was a form of woke as well. Because he played the experiences of Harlem
Preaching.
to
That's
white
right.
European audiences.
That's right. That's right.
What is your take on?
Shout out to Jason Moran.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I gotta reach out to him.
Yeah.
The thing I'm not liking is how this country is moving, trying to erase blackness.
Yeah.
BLACK, NUSSS. I listened to, like you said, the jazz artists that broke it down.
Yeah.
What's your take on this now?
I would love to see more of a united front with us, meaning black artists. I think that at one time, if you look at black history, there was a time when black popular culture, per se, like there was no big wide gap between the most popular black art. Like it was one big family. Like Sidney Poitier was tight with Miles Davis, who was tight with Judith Jameson, who was tight with Lee Elder, who was tight with Bill Russell, who was tight with McCoy Tyner, who was tight with Angela Davis. So if you were black and great, y'all were tight. There was no like, oh, he's a great black jazz musician, she's a great black soul singer, she's a great black gospel artist. If you were black, y'all bonded together. And I feel like black popular culture almost is as far away from the rest of the community as we think white popular culture is. Like for example, in let's pick a year, 1965 or 1966.
Curtis Mayfield, let's people get ready.
You go backstage at the Regal Theater in Chicago or the Apollo Theater in Harlem, there was a 60% chance that you would get to shake Curtis Mayfield's hand and say, thank you, Mr. Mayfield. What inspires you to write that kind of music? Sure, I'm sure there were bodyguards back there, but the culture was as such as that you could talk to a legend like that. We all know James Brown and Muhammad Ali and Nina Simone.
Sly Stone.
You could get to them,
right.
And I feel like the most powerful black artists in pop culture, hip hop, can't get to them, and I don't know, other than a few people, Common, we know he's in the family. Queen Latifah, she's in the family. I would love to see more of a united front of great black geniuses.
I was listening to Questlove's show. He had Ice-T on.
And he's another one, my homie.
Yeah, Amir is a bad boy.
Yeah.
Ice-T said something that was very on point. He said, right now we need 20-something-year-old Lauryn Hills and Public Enemies right now. We don't have that.
Amen.
Our generation, we had the Coup, KRS-One,
Yep.
Tribe Called Quest,
That's
De La
right.
Soul. Then we had Souls of Mischief. Then we had Nas. We had Goody Mob. There was Arrested Development. We had the street shit.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
That's all good. That's right.
But we also had the Afrocentric and the conscious stuff too.
Big time.
And that was what made hip hop so great at that time.
That's right.
Do you think we're ever going to go back to that?
I think we're going to have to. Only because I think what we see tends to be so hollow and so driven by money and likes that something of cultural substance other than the surface things that we like, there's going to have to be another Public Enemy. There's going to have to be another Sister Soldier. That's coming, and they're probably here. We just don't know them.
Well, the record companies don't want
Exactly. Well, I mean, what a record company is now. I feel like it's the wild, wild west out there now. It's like, and that's another conversation. How do you get heard with all of this static out there in the world right now?
You can't.
Yeah.
Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, he's out there. Kendrick, but the consciousness right now, I think, is like null and void right now. I mean, there was a period of time when even our movies spoke volumes. New Jack City.
Yeah.
There were movies out portraying the black image, but it's like now, we've changed. Ava DuVernay, she's done some things. But I think, as you say, the consciousness and the culture thing has kind of
It's not about that anymore. It's all about I'm bad.
Tekashi foolishness. That's what I call it.
Man, a simple rule someone said, I don't remember who I heard say this, but it made so much sense. As a black person especially, when you're out there in public doing what you do as an artist, as a poet, as a dancer, whatever you do, make your mama proud. And I do not envy parents right now. They gotta handle a whole lot, man.
Yeah.
I used to feel bad that I never became a father, but sometimes I think no, that's a good thing. I like my spiritual kids, these musicians that are coming through, And I get to share with them my experiences, things that I believe in, things that I've read that they might not have read, And I got to shout out my mom too, man, because she's a school teacher, and she made me read a lot when I was a kid, So yeah, you're gonna read Huckleberry Finn and 1984, but you're also gonna read Blues People and Why Jails Are Obsolete by Angela Davis. So it was a good balance, all of that.
Right.
Woke. Yeah. You dig? That's right.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pacey Boy, reporting live here at the House of Swing, Jazz and Lincoln Center, here in the heart of Columbus Circle here in New York City. Guys, please support Christian and his wife Mellissa for this year's 2023 Montclair Jazz Festival, as well as support Christian as the artistic director for this year's 2023 Newport Jazz Festival. Also, guys, please support his brand new Jawn project, Prime, which is now available on Brother Mr. Mack Avenue Records. Also, people, I can't stress this enough. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Jazz at Lincoln Center and Dizzy's for their warm hospitality. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as leave comments. And follow me on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.